Thank you for tuning in to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast, a no judgment zone podcast that covers lifestyle, entertainment, news, and sports. Even though KC doesn't watch sports, but these are minor details. By the way, he reads tarot cards too. Yes, I really mean it. He reads tarot cards too. And now, the host you've tuned in for, KC Phoenix.
Welcome back to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. I, of course, am your host, KC Phoenix, and I'm doing this story. You know, I came across this story probably about 4 days ago. Clearly, it's older than that. But, I just wanted to talk about it for a second. This isn't going to be that long because I'm already, other things are on the schedule. I got stuff to do. Before I go any further, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. All right, so this came across my phone and I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Because with modeling, a long time ago, I had pursued a career in modeling, which I guess technically I was a model because they say once you get your first check, you're officially a model. And yeah, I got paid for a runway show that I did back a long time ago and blah, 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 whatever. But as for it being like my profession, no, it wasn't it. I was what some people jokingly call a modeler, where it's like you were attempting, but your heart wasn't really in it as much. So yeah, that's kind of what it was. If my heart was in it, I probably would have done more, like some of my counterparts, because some people that I'm close to, they have walked for major international designers across the world. But we all have our path. But one thing I was told was with the males is that, oh, you'll be okay because a male can start his career at 40 years old and be fine. With the female, her career, and this was back decades ago, with the female, her career is usually coming to a close. It's almost like it's at its peak. I think it was 27, if I'm not mistaken. If you ever run into a booking agent or something from a modeling agency, they can give you more an exact range. But I think it was 27 for females, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I always thought that was interesting. For this, I had seen this thing with this 90-year-old man, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. So let me read this article and then we'll discuss. It says, The Spanish King, how a 90-year-old grandfather became a fashion model. It says he is known as the Spanish King, and at 90 years old, he has worked with some of the biggest fashion brands in the world. Yes, Andres Garcia Cron is a grandfather, but he's also a popular model with over 40,000 followers on Instagram. Andreas stepped into the fashion scene 2 years ago when his granddaughter, Celine Van Heel, a photographer, asked him to be her first photo subject. Since I was small, I remember him being very well dressed, Celine says. The Spanish King has worked with several popular fashion brands, including Zara, and has featured in the likes of Vogue and GQ. Celine describes her grandfather's zest for life as contagious, adding that it's not all for the gram. What you see online is what you get in person. And that's it for this story. There were other stories that I had seen, but I didn't want to read them because other reasons. another discussion for another day. As for this, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to talk about this, and for those who are watching this, you can see the picture and stuff like that. And his Instagram is apparently the Spanish King. Let me click on this and see if it brings it up. Right quick, view profile and do that. Yeah, if you want to follow him on Instagram, his Instagram handle is the Spanish King _ So the little underscore symbol is what it is for those who want to follow on the gram. Which, yeah, he's 90 years old and he's doing his thing. I'm not mad at him. I like this story because you have people who feel that when they reach a certain age, that's it. Some people are like, oh, I need to just ride off into the sunset. I don't feel there's anything else I can do because of my age. And this is an example. The Spanish King is an example of, wait a second, I can still do some things, because clearly he could have been of the mindset, okay, this is saying that he was discovered because he was the subject of his granddaughter, her first subject, because his granddaughter is a photographer. And all right, someone had seen his picture. If he had that mindset where it's like, oh, I don't want to do it, because they approach him and they're like, hey, we like for you to do a runway show, or hey, we like for you to be in whatever. And he was just like, oh, I've done enough. I don't feel I can do it. You know, I'm old. Who would want to see me? All of this other stuff, the negative self-talk is what we call it. Then he wouldn't be in Vogue and he wouldn't be in GQ. And not saying that that is something that, I don't want to use the word validation because I don't like that word. Not saying that Vogue, being in Vogue and GQ is something that justifies someone's existence, because you can be in Vogue, GQ, Elle, and so on and so forth, all of these other fashion magazines, and be a horrible person or be lacking in spiritual, be lacking in spirit, or lacking in heart, or lacking in mental balance, spiritual balance, all of that stuff. So you can still be lacking and appear in every magazine in the world. So I'm not implying that. What I am saying is that he wouldn't have known unless he tried. And I talk about that all the time. And when people age, it's just like, it's almost like they close the door on themselves sometimes, where they're just like, oh, I can't do it, I'm too old. And yes, we have a lot of ageism. That is one of my pet peeves, where people, you know, they attempt to judge, or they attempt to belittle or demean others because of their age. And some people, when they're looking at that critique from other parties, it starts to, that energy starts to stay with them. And they're like, yeah, I see what they're saying about that person. They're too old to be doing that. They're too old to be saying that. They're too old to be wearing that. They're too old to be thinking that. They're too old for this. They're too old for that. But then you have to ask yourself, does it really matter what other people think? What do you think? What do you think about yourself? I'm glad that Andreas had healthy self-esteem. They came to him because first his granddaughter was like, hey, would you like to be a subject? He was like, okay, clearly. And then after that, he's discovered. And they're like, hey, would you like to be in this magazine or working with this fashion brand or doing this or doing that? And he's like, okay, sure. Why not have that attitude as you get older? Why not have that confidence in yourself? He wasn't like, oh, well, people are going to say I'm too old. He wasn't second guessing himself. He just went ahead and did it and let the chips fall where they may. And sometimes you may not get the result that you want. That doesn't mean that that's necessarily a bad thing either. There are plenty of situations, especially in the modeling industry. There were so many people, like top models, that got turned down. Because one thing about modeling, let me just give you the inside scoop on some of this stuff in the modeling industry. One thing about modeling, they have a certain type that they are looking for at that time. And I kid you not, that type that they were looking for yesterday could change next week. Where you go into an agency because you're looking for an agent, and they're like, oh, you're too commercial. It's like, okay. Oh, you're too editorial. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're that. And I remember I went to one agency and I had a smaller agent, but they were trying to get me signed with the larger agency in New York. And the agent at the agency had said, the larger agency had said, we already have enough black models right now. And some people might think, oh, racism. No, it's not racism. This is business. You have to go by what the industry needs. It's like you're filling an order. And if for the people who are coming to the modeling agencies for whatever they want to do, any ads or anything like that, any products that they want to sell and they want a model to be in the product, they know what they want. Either they want someone who's Latin, they want someone who's Asian, they want someone who's black, they want someone who's white, or even down to, oh, you know what? I want a black person with freckles. That's what I want. Send me all the headshots, all the pictures, or the comp cards, or whatever. But really, a comp card is more when you're going to the agency. But send me all of your people, all your girls, or all your guys, black people that have freckles. That's what I want, because that's what I need for this particular ad that I'm doing for marketing. This is the aesthetic that I'm looking for. And that's how it is in the modeling industry. Going back to what I said before, they may say no that day, but if you go back to them 3 months later, they may have a client who was looking for one thing at one time, but now they're looking for exactly what you are that time. And then you walk back in 3 months later where they had just told you no. And then they're like, oh, we're so glad you came back. You are exactly what we need. And you might be thinking to yourself, wait a second, didn't you just turn me down 3 months ago? I mean, yeah, I came back just to see if you were looking, but it's stuff like that happens. And I'm telling that story to tell this. Just because something doesn't work for you in that moment, it's only that, a moment. That's it. Time still continues to move forward. So in the future, there may be something else that matches up with you. But in that moment, if it doesn't work out, you can't be like, oh, well, I'm just going to let it go. And with this particular story, I just like it because of his age. Because I'm sure if he would have walked into certain agencies, they would have been like, no, sir, you're too old. Okay. But clearly, it's working now. Or if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Tyra Banks went to more than one agency. I'm 85% sure she went to more than one agency. And that's really all that it is. It's like rejection, 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 rejection. When you're attempting to sign with an agency, and also signing with a big agency doesn't necessarily mean anything either. Let me throw that out there. You can be signed with Elite, you can be signed with Ford, you can be signed with Company, you can be signed with what's some of the other agencies? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's been a minute. Elite, Ford, Company. Was it IMG Tyra was signed to, which I was almost signed to the same agency she was signed to, because it was 3 people. 1 liked me, 2 didn't. Let's see. It's been so long. There was another agency. I forgot her name. It's a woman's name, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. If I hear it, then it'll come to me. But whatever. But yeah, being signed to a large agency doesn't mean anything. And also, just because you're working doesn't always mean that you're making a lot of money either. I kid you not. Many, many years ago when I worked at Banana Republic, I was working with a guy, and he was gorgeous. And he was signed, it was either to Elite or Ford. I want to say he was signed to Ford. He was working with me at the Banana Republic because I worked at the Banana Republic part-time. He had a billboard, I kid you not, in Miami. It was a Tommy Hilfiger ad. Up there. But he was working at Banana Republic. So people have it in their mind that when they see someone, especially back then, there wasn't a lot of social media back then, so it was harder to monetize your brand than it is now. It's a little bit easier now because of social media, even though I think social media is overrated. But back then, you could be on a billboard and still just making okay money in doing that. The point of all of this is don't let your age be the reason why you give up on your dreams. I really don't want people to give up on their dreams, period. Because if you're breathing, you still got a chance. That's how I look at it. So yeah, but I thought the story was cool. Anyways, I hit my mark. I need to get going. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Until next time, be blessed.